I'm your host, Lori Crever. Today we're joined by Minnesota author Eric Dregni. If somebody's watching right now who has been thinking that they would like to acquire a scooter, are they fairly easy to secure? You know what I mean, to keep them safe from, because it seems like it could conceivably be very easy to steal.
Oh yeah, they're really easy to steal. I mean, even if you, yeah, that's the problem. You get a good chain, like a kryptonite, lock it to something, because otherwise, you know, they can just pop it in the back of a pickup.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the nature of the beast. My Lambretta was stolen 3 times, and the cops are like, oh, you'll never see it again. You just go scouring the alleys and you find it.
It will just appear.
Yeah, because luckily it broke down all the time, so then they couldn't figure out how to drive it. So.
That was a good strategy, maybe, to not really keep it in totally good repair.
Yeah. See, one of the problems with scooter, I should make a little caveat here, is that when they look so easy, like they're so easy to drive, and so anybody goes out there and starts driving around, doesn't wear a helmet.
Yes.
So be careful. Wear a helmet.
Yeah, do you know here in Minnesota, like let's say if you're 15 or 16 years old, do you need to go get some type of certification in order to operate one?
Yeah, it's not considered a moped unless it's 50 cc or less.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not real clear on the laws because I had a more powerful scooter, but yeah, get the proper training. It'll be worth it. There's all sorts of motorcycle driving courses too. And the great thing about scooters is you'll pass your test like that because you can move them all over the place. They're really easy to drive.
Yeah, and what did you enjoy your scootering for more? Doing city driving or on and off a campus, for example, or is it something on a weekend for leisure time to just sort of go out somewhere where there's some space and some trees?
All of the above. One of the great things is being a student, you can drive it right up to the door and you can park it with the bicycles. And sometimes they don't like it, but in general, you can go right there, lock it up, and everybody else is looking for parking or taking the bus. And
well, I think it is good to consider alternatives to a car or a truck as your way to get around. What is the connection between scootering and the Pope?
Oh, believe it or not, there's quite a bit. The Pope blessed the millionth Vespa, and then there's an old article I found in the 1956 Time magazine, I think it was, that they talk about the different factions of the Catholic Church, the Benedictines and the Franciscans, and how the Benedictines were the best because they used scooters and they got around and they converted more people. Yeah,
I mean, I can easily get a picture in my mind of a nun on a scooter. I don't know where I have that from, if it's from a movie or the flying nun.
Yeah. She drove a little scooter around, a little Vespa.
Wow.
Yeah, there's all sorts of old, I mean, of course, Roman Holiday, and there's all sorts of old actors. You know, they always had to have Ben-Hur. They used Vespas off the set. All sorts of pictures of them in their togas and their Roman legionary outfits on scooters.
Oh, sure. That would be a good way to get around if you were making if you happen to be making an epic motion picture.
Well, and
a scooter would be a good mode of transportation.
Like Amelia Earhart was one of the first people to really promote scooters because, I mean, being a pilot, you have to walk all the way down the tarmac to your plane.
Yeah.
And so she would just hop on her little scooter and go right there and leave it. So there's a real famous picture of her on a little motoped of one of the earliest scooters before she got on her fateful mission and was never heard from again.
How interesting. And then, of course, on the cover of one of your scooter books that you co-authored with your brother, Michael, it's the actress, the American actress, Sandra Dee.
Who was married to
Bobby Darin. And you said that this particular cover shot, it was originally in a calendar?
Yeah, Vespa Piaggio put out an annual calendar of these, you know, babes on scooters. And they're really classic old cheesecake photos and drawings, too.
Well, the artwork in it and what you uncovered is great fun. And there's also, we should mention, it has a lot of really good tips as well for the art of maintaining your scooter and some safety tips. It really breaks it down.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of, you know, when I got into scooters, right after being in Italy, so in the late 80s, and back then, you know, Vespa wasn't being sold here. There's hardly any scooters available. And so learning how to monkey wrench all of the parts and all the safety and having all the drivers yell at you because they want you to get that off the road. And cops hate scooters, and so over the year you get some tips. Then when you see
gathered, so you accumulated some tips.
Yeah, and then when you see the kids going out nowadays, they go and buy a Vespa and they think everybody's going to love them, and so here's like how to survive in the world of scootering nowadays.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the key points of differentiation between a scooter and a motorcycle? Again, if there was somebody watching right now who's considering making an acquisition,
which should they choose?
Yeah,
Well,
or what do you see? Well, how are they really dramatically different?
See, I don't think people are either into scooters or they're into motorcycles. People think, oh, you got into scooters because you were into motorcycles. And it's like, no, I've never been into motorcycles.
Yeah.
I mean, they have their place.
Yeah.
But I think that kids love scooters because they're fun, whereas motorcycles, it's more of the image of, easy rider, tough guy,
I know, the rock and roll music.
And then scooters, it's much more, maybe they're a little more stylish. There's a whole mod movement.
Quieter.
They're quieter. Unless you saw off the exhaust pipe like they do in Italy.
Oh my
saw
goodness.
About a couple inches, go a lot faster, make a lot of noise.
Make a lot of noise.
What
is the mod movement? You mean sort of like retro, like back to 1960s, early 70s?
The mods were mostly a British movement in the early 60s. And then like bands like, the Beatles and the Who and the Kinks and some of those bands kind of grew out of that. But the mods wanted to wear only Italian clothes and wanted to live like Italians, but in England. And so they got the little scooters and they got all the beautiful sharkskin suits and all of that. And then they battled the rockers who wanted to be like American cowboys, and this whole aesthetic of, and they had these little cafe racers, these tricked out BSAs and Royal Enfield motorcycles. And they would, go down to the beaches in Brighton and, scuffle a little bit, and then the tabloids in England splashed it across the pages, and everybody got all excited about it. The Brits love all that tabloid material. So.
Yes, that is fascinating. Well, let's move on to your next book. It's called Midwest Marvels. The Grand Canyon, the Great Pyramids of Giza.
A talking Paul Bunyan.
It's right in there. So let's talk about the marvels of the Midwest.
Yeah, actually, I should say that with the Midwest, I grew up in Minnesota, so I consider the Midwest the 5-state region here.
Yeah.
And I found out soon
enough.
enough.
Why does Ohio try to lump itself in?
Ohio, Indiana,
no.
Michigan, Oklahoma considers itself Midwest. They do.
No, your book is talking about
the 5-state
Wisconsin,
region.
Minnesota, the Dakotas, Iowa. Okay.
And so I just went on all these road trips through North Dakota, like a week in North Dakota, taking pictures and talking about all the stuff all over the place.
You could also have called this Beyond the Badlands, because that is a Midwest marvel. Maybe that would come to mind, is to go visit Mount Rushmore.
And well, it's interesting. You talk about the Grand Canyon.
There, which is in fairness, that's in there.
These are sort of the oddities, the weird,
the quirky sites.
We had to include Mount Rushmore just because the idea of taking a mountain and making it look like 4 presidents. Because then there's Crazy Horse, which will never be done. The Crazy Horse Monument out there in Custer. Yeah. They're turning the whole mountain. It's going to be 10 times bigger than Mount Rushmore into a statue of Crazy Horse.
Wow.
And they sculpt with dynamite and,
That's how I always sculpt.
With dynamite.
With dynamite, yeah.
Dynamite and cats.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, came across some really odd stuff. I knew most of the things in Minnesota.
What about the Ball of Twine? I think that's something people have heard of.
Yeah, the Ball of Twine in Darwin, Minnesota.
Okay.
And of course the Paul Bunyans. And there's 3 main Paul Bunyans. There's the talking one, which in Brainerd, the most photographed one in Bemidji, and then the biggest one, which is in Akeley. It's got this handout. It's a little bit newer than the other ones, but it's a great one. But then
you made a visit to Wall Drug, I believe.
Wall Drug is one of those meccas. The other big mecca.
Did you get a T-shirt when you were there, or a hat, or?
I got a glass of ice water because that's how it all started. The guy started giving out ice water.
Your research? Oh, really?
Yeah. People going across the the Badlands there, dying of thirst. He just put up the sign, free ice water, and everybody started stopping.
Oh, what a good idea. And then he could sell them some dental
Knickknacks
floss or
and
something.
jackalopes and whatever. The other great place, which everybody knows, but it doesn't seem people go to
Take
that
the
much,
time to visit, yeah.
is the Wisconsin Dells.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's just,
And they're open year-round, right?
open year-round. They got the water parks in the winter, but they have a Trojan horse that's 60 feet tall. It's a wooden Trojan horse that they built, 60 feet tall. That's what
was the
6 stories
motivation?
tall.
Was this somebody's
It's
project?
a go-kart track. So you can drive right through the belly of the horse.
Wow.
I mean, that's incredible.
That's a marvel.
Yeah.
I mean, I stand corrected.
And then they have, these big fiberglass statues of, they got a Paul Bunyan there, of course, and they have, a Vineland Viking, and they have, Trojans and whatever. And they have at the putt-putt golf courses, they have one of them that I think is 92 holes or something, and then it has a volcano in the middle that explodes.
Ooh. What did you find in North Dakota?
North Dakota, one of the newest attractions is called the Enchanted Highway, and it's a series of some of the world's largest structures. It's always got to be the world's largest, right?
Definitely.
And my favorite one is it's a Pioneer family, and it's made out of old tin silos, and it's gigantic. I forget how many feet tall it is, but they're juniors sucking a lollipop, and they're real blocky statues. But because out in western Montana, it's totally flat there, and so these just rise up, and you can see them for miles.
Very interesting. And how about Iowa? What were some marvels that you encounter and report about from there?
Iowa, the best one, I would say, the must-see is the Grotto of the Redemption, and it's in West Bend, Iowa. And it's a grotto, like in Europe, they have these old religious grottos where, they're a cave.
It's a cave, right? Yeah.
It's a cave. It's usually a cave, but in this case, he made a cave, but Iowa's pretty flat, so he had to sort of build it up. And he was a rock collector. There's a Father Doberstein.
Okay.
And so he collected all these gems and precious things that he would attach onto his cave that he built. And there's the Stations of the Cross, and he's got some statues inside. And it's a whole square block. And he worked on this his whole life.
Wow.
And it's really beautiful. It's odd, but it's quite a sight. I mean, then they have other things like, the world's largest strawberry and a bunch of windmills, and they have the world's largest anatomically correct bull that talks.
Oh my goodness,
So
that sounds very educational.
Yep.
Well, we just have a couple of minutes left, so can you just select sort of one standout, like let's say there's a family watching right now that wants to plan a weekend road trip somewhere in the 5-state area that you think, boy, family, this is worth your time and your gas money.
Well, I can choose one. Let me say one that's not worth your time.
Okay.
The Outhouse, well, it's pretty great. The Outhouse Museum in Gregory, South Dakota. He's got like 7 outhouses, two-story outhouses, and some other things. I think that one of the really great sites that some people in Minnesota know about, but it's in Hayward, Wisconsin, is the walk through Muskie, and it's half a block long. It's a fish.
A fish that's about a half a block long.
It's a half a block long.
Oh my.
And it's the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. You can go inside of it, and it's got all these displays, and then people have got, the fish comes up, and then the mouth opens up, and you can stand, it's a little lookout over the lake, and people have gotten married in the mouth of the fish. It's really quite a sight. And while you're there, stop at the Moccasin Bar.
Yeah.
They have all these little dioramas of stuffed animals, like raccoon, like actual taxidermied animals, and in these bizarre situations, a little macabre, but it's pretty funny.
It sounds fascinating. Hayward, Wisconsin. Well, and it's a great book, and people will get lots of good ideas from it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to do. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. This is Lori Crever signing off from another edition of 30 Minutes with the Author, inviting you to read a book. It could change your life, and let's encourage our children to do the same.